This conference will now be recorded.
There we go.
I'd like to open up the May 2nd, 2022 regular council meeting in order at 7:02. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's like we have two additions to the agenda tonight to be put in old business. And the first one looks like is a staff report from Josette.
Revisiting the Spencer Park camera.
Okay. And the second one is another staff report from Ben. He asked us to do a little homework and he'd come back to this meeting and for further discussion. So, are there any other additions or questions or changes to the agenda? If not, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the agenda with those two additions?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
So moved. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Ash. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Rash?
Aye.
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 Hobart?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any presentations tonight? Okay, I'd like to move in. I just have a quick thing on my mayor's report. Of course, at the skate park grand opening, certain people were recognized. And is Randy going to be here tonight? Oh, okay.
I didn't hear back from him, so.
Okay. Well, there's one award that was presented to the city of Vernonia. And I'd like to not only thank the present council, but the past council for their work in directing this. But most of all, I'd like to thank staff and specifically Josette
No, thanks.
for all the work you did to make it happen. So I'm going to give this to you.
Oh, thanks.
This is your first.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone want to ask me a packet question? JR?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, let's just move in. Are there any council committee meeting reports?
Oh,
I went to Parks Committee. The main takeaway is something we're going to talk about tonight, which is the support for the planning grant that they want us to apply for the campground at the lake.
Good. Did they tell you how much that, well, I'll wait till I can get into the amount of that grant, or maybe there's no amount yet.
I don't know.
I'll give you all that info.
Okay.
I don't know.
Any topics from the floor tonight? Okay. Well, if not, we're going to move right into the public hearing. So I'll open that up at 7:07 PM. Stephanie? This public hearing is now open at 7:07 on May 2nd, 2022 for consideration of application and map and zoning map amendment, file number N22-01 and PAZC 22-01. Order of the hearing. Public hearing will follow a certain order. It is staff will present a staff report of the proposal and the criteria for approval. Next, testimony will be allowed for those in favor of the proposal, following with testimony in opposition of the proposal, then comments that are neither in favor nor against the application. Staff will then have an opportunity for rebuttal. No new evidence will be allowed during rebuttal. Therefore, it is important that you clearly and concisely state your full testimony at the time you are allowed to speak. Each speaker will step to the dais and clearly state his or her name and mailing address for the record prior to your testimony. No speaker will be interrupted except for questions by city council members. No testimony will be entered into the record if spoken from the position of the general audience. Those participating in the hearing will have the opportunity to request a continuance to address any new evidence submitted in favor of the application, or if time does not allow testimony to be completed at this hearing. If no continuance is requested, those participating will have the opportunity to request kept open for 7 days to allow for written rebuttal of testimony presented at this hearing. Otherwise, the hearing will be closed and the matter will be returned to the hearing body for deliberation. Does any council member have an ex parte contact to declare? Okay. Does any member of the hearing body have a conflict of interest to declare? Does anyone want to challenge a counselor's right to consider this application? If not, we're ready for a staff report from the city planner.
Good evening, counselors and audience. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. I'm Carrie Brennicky. Good evening, everybody. What you have before you is an annexation and a comprehensive plan map and zone map amendment for the property at 1621 Heather Lane. Application files AN 22-01 and PAZC 22-01. If you'd like to turn to page 21 of your packets there, you'll see a map, which will make it a little easier to follow along what's going on. So the applicant is requesting to annex approximately 0.51 acres of property at 1621 Heather Lane. And to do that, he also needs to process an amendment to the city's zoning map to zone the property. And because the city has a comprehensive plan and zoning map, we need to also update the comprehensive plan map. So the applicant is requesting the annexation because basically it's a developed property with a single family home and the septic system is failing. And the county sanitarian requires hookup to public sewer if it's available. And on Heather Lane there is public sewer available. So in order to access the public sewer in Vernonia, the property needs to annex. Now the panhandle of the flag lot there is already in the city. It's the remaining portion that is currently outside city limits. So that is the portion that is going to be brought in. So annexations are governed by state statutes. I'm going to read some stuff off because I have to by law, giving the staff report. ORS 22.11.222, 222.180. And these are the state statutes that govern annexation. And basically, this is a newer section of the state statute that allows for annexation petitions to be submitted if all property owners consent to the annexation and no public vote is required. And the state statute explains that the city council can determine the annexation meets the criteria described in the ORS. So we have that portion of it. And basically what the Oregon revised statutes say is it adjacent to city limits? Does the city have capacity with its roads, water, sewer to serve it? And in this case, it does. Now it comes to our Vernonia city code. And basically, we have 9-01.02-50 zoning for annexed areas. And in that zoning areas annexed to the city need to be zoned with the city zoning classification for the property according to the city's comprehensive plan. The plan and zone amendment procedure is required by state law, and it can be processed concurrently with the annexation of the property. So that's why you see two different actions before you and two different ordinances. One is for the annexation, and one is to update the zoning and comprehensive plan map. So in this case, the applicant submitted the application for the zoning map and comprehensive plan map concurrently with the annexation. So for the findings, basically, the application meets all the criteria in the Vernonia code for the zone map amendment. The property is contiguous to the city boundary. It is already accessed by a Vernonia road, and there is water and sewer. And as for zoning, it is designated residential. It is developed as residential. It has the side benefit of getting an ADU on the property if they would like to. It's not going to interfere with the use of any properties around it as residential. And then the zoning map is essentially the same. Well, if you look at the map I showed you, we're basically turning it orange. Just that one sliver of property there is what the zoning map change will be. For the comprehensive plan map findings, most of them don't apply because it's already designated residential on our comprehensive plan map, and we aren't changing its designation. We're just having to update the map because of the one map system. So with that, the Planning Commission held a hearing and recommended approval of the annexation and the plan amendment and comprehensive plan map amendment in the zoning map at their Planning Commission meeting on April 7th. And based on the findings and the Planning Commission recommendation, staff recommends you approve ordinance 936 for the annexation and ordinance 937 for the comprehensive plan map amendment. I can answer any more questions. I just don't want to, there's a lot of, it's a very long report to do very little. So I just want to make sure if you have any questions, let me know. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Any questions for the staff, for Carrie tonight? Question?
I had a hard time hearing when she said that, I know the county wants you to hook up to sewer within how many feet? Was it
350.
350? And we're within that 350, is that?
Well, yeah, and once he's within 350.
So my question, I guess, is how did we get on a septic system in the first place when the county requires you to hook up? Was Heatherline not developed there and there was no sewer at that time? Or?
It was out of the city limits.
Oh,
I didn't have that rule with 350 feet.
At the time of the build of the original home.
Built.
What year do you think?
1980, and I think that these were the first three homes on the park. And I would question whether the sewer line was extended down there. Probably not. I don't know. You guys know that.
Yeah.
Seems like that first section of Heather went to where the curb and gutter is and then stopped, and then it seemed like they expanded further on later on, but my memory.
Yeah, I know Boyd Ruby put in the rest of Heather. Was he the builder of that?
Those first three
Okay.
that you can see on the map, there's three.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all that happened. I was wondering.
That's all I had.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Carrie. So we'll move on. Testimony in favor. Testimony will now be heard from those in favor of the application. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. Please step forward, stating your name and mailing address for the record, then proceed with your testimony.
My name's Jim Morrison. I'm the manager of Vernonia Properties LLC, and mailing address is P.O. Box 30, Vernonia. This process for hooking up the sewer, I approached the county sanitarian asking for a tank replacement, and she said that since we're so close to the sewer that we needed to hook up to city sewer because of EPA and DEQ requirements. So I came to the city and found out about this process of annexing it, which is the way, in my understanding, the way the city wants this to be done. They don't want anybody outside the city limits to hook up to sewer. We already have water up there from the city from way back, but to hook up to the sewer, they wanted us to annex in. And so I hired Kirsten Van Loo to prepare all this for me. And because it's pretty complex, not something, a normal application for me. And so we're ready to, if this is approved, to pay all the fees that are needed to the city. And then also cities will get property tax, more property tax from this property, and then monthly, sewer. So I think there's benefit to the city as well as benefit to us, being able to resolve the sanitation problem there. So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for being here for sure.
Jim, what's it going to cost you more to do it this way or less, or what's the?
Well, thanks for asking me that. It's going to cost me about 4 times more to do it this way. We're talking about less than $5,000 to replace the tank, and then this whole process is about $20,000. So that's about what this kind of takes to do, and that includes the contractor to hook up and the land use professional that I hired to prepare this.
It sounds like the county kind of stuck you with this one.
Well, yeah, they did a little bit. And it's city procedure. They used to let people hook up, like the neighboring property, the one that's just to the west on your map there. Within the last, I don't know how many years, half a dozen years, they were, before city policy changed, and they did allow a few people to hook up. But then talking with the city a couple of years ago, talking with Ben, I knew that, they weren't allowed, the city wasn't allowing that. And that's the policy now, is that they don't hook up to anybody outside the city, so, or let anybody hook up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, testimony in opposition. Testimony will now be heard from those opposed to the application. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. Please step forward, stating your name and mailing address for the record, then proceed with your testimony. No opposition. Okay, neutral testimony. Anyone like to speak who is either in favor of or opposed to the application? Please step forward, stating your name and mailing address for the record, then proceed with your statement. No neutrality here. Okay. Final call for testimony. Does anyone else wish to submit oral testimony before the applicant has the final opportunity to respond? No oral testimony. Applicant rebuttal. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the facts introduced by those opposing the application or any statements made regarding the proposal? Okay, moving on to extend the hearing. Is there a request by any of the participants or the hearing body to continue this hearing to another date and time to consider new evidence or because of the complexity of this proposal? If not, I will close this public hearing at 7:22. Public hearing closed. So we'll move on back to council deliberation. Any further discussion before I ask for a motion? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept these two ordinances tonight?
Separate motion to approve it, then the ordinances, or can we just do the ordinances?
You're approving the ordinances. So you can just do the ordinances one by one.
Perfect, thank you.
One by one? Okay.
So sorry, quick preview of the ordinance adoption process. Kind of tedious and annoying.
Yes.
So we'll entertain a motion to approve, second and vote, then I'll do a first reading.
Yep.
If you guys want, we can do the second reading. You have to make a motion to approve, and I'll do the second reading. And then we'll do the same thing for the next ordinance.
Okay.
Okay?
So
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 936, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city limits by 0.51 acres of territory.
so moved. Thank you, Councilor Webb. Is there a second? Second's been made. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Counselor Allen?
Aye.
Counselor Ash?
Aye.
Mayor Hobart?
Aye.
Counselor Webb?
Aye.
Counselor Norman?
Aye.
Motion carried. Would any counselor like to hear this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the first reading of ordinance number 936 by title only. An ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city limits by annexing 0.51 acres of territory.
And we need a motion to
Again,
Again,
ordinance number 936, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city limits by annexing 0.51 acres of territory.
thank you, Councilor
First,
Webb.
second reading.
Yes. He's getting good at it.
I will second.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Ash. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Counselor Norman?
Aye.
Counselor Webb?
Aye.
Mayor Hobart?
Aye.
Counselor Ash?
Aye.
Counselor Allen? Motion carried. Would any counselor wish to hear this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the second reading of ordinance number 936 by title only. An ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city limits by annexing 0.51 acres of territory. This ordinance will be effective in 30 days.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, the next ordinance, 937.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 937, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city of Vernonia comprehensive plan map and zoning map to assign an R residential Vernonia zoning designation to a concurrently annexed residential property at 1621 Heather Lane.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Allen. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Mayor Hobart?
Aye.
Ash?
Aye.
Counselor Webb?
Aye.
Counselor Norman?
Aye.
Counselor Allen?
Aye.
Motion carried. Would any counselor wish to hear this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the first reading of ordinance number 937 by title only. An ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city of Vernonia comprehensive plan map and zoning map to assign a R residential zone Vernonia zoning designation to a concurrently annexed residential property at 1621 Heather Lane. One more. When you're done,
I have to read it, the title again.
just say as titled.
I will move that we approve ordinance 937 as titled.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Webb. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Counselor Ash,
Aye.
Counselor Allen,
Aye.
Counselor Webb,
Aye.
Counselor Norman,
Aye.
motion carried. Would any counselor wish to hear this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the second reading of ordinance number 937, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending the city of Vernonia comprehensive plan map and zoning map to assign a R Vernonia zoning designation to a concurrently annexed residential property at 1621 Heather Lane. This ordinance will become effective in 30 days.
Wonderful. Okay, moving on to number 9, cassette agenda for acceptance, cemetery committee meeting minutes for March 2022. Airport committee meeting minutes for April 2022. Parks committee meeting minutes for March 2022.
Real quick, sorry, Jim, that's the end of your application is approved. Everybody will reach out to you in the next day or two to let you know next steps.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
For everybody's work. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you for taking the steps, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, any discussion or questions on these minutes?
I read the airport meeting minutes and I concur with the looks of the stuff around there. So it's looking a little, needs a little spruce up park host. So I think since I was out there Sunday, I concur.
I just had one comment, probably be for Councilor Ash. When they indicate questioning on the boat ramp at Anderson Park. And there was a comment about anything that is put there to improve the area would potentially just be washed downstream in the winter. Well, that's not the idea that we have, is put something in that wouldn't be washed down the stream, probably concrete. So, I mean,
Okay.
just, I don't know where that
It
came
comes
from,
up again.
what context it was in, but that's not our goal. Something's gonna get washed away. Trying to put something in there so people have a four-wheel to get their boats in and out of the river down there, so wintertime.
It's like they gave up on the normal boat launch and started doing it down at the horse marina, muddying it all up down there.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, I think the boat launch could be just straight instead of going down and turning in that mud flat. That would save a lot because I always launch and just straight with my drift boat, just slide it over a little bank instead of going down that mud flat. It goes down, turns and gets way down there. You could shorten it up and not have all that mud silt that goes over gravel and concrete.
Yeah, it's something the Parks Committee needs to talk to some of the boating community and what would best serve them down there for the least impact, and least cost to the city. Give us a proposal.
I have a question for Sheree. Was there any discussion in your meeting about the what am I trying to say? We talked about the other day on the,
Yeah, I can't remember.
oh, I'll think of it later, I guess. Okay, anything about any more discussion on these 3 meeting minutes or?
Just in case on the airport, it says tall mat, it's supposed to be stall mats.
Okay. Anyone like to approve these meeting minutes with a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda for acceptance.
Okay, is there a second?
Well, second.
Thank you, Counselor Norman. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Counselor Allen. Counselor Ash.
Aye.
Mayor Hobart.
Aye.
Counselor Webb.
Aye.
Counselor Norman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Consent agenda for approval, city council meeting minutes for March 30th, 2022. And city council meeting minutes for April 18th, 2022.
Me.
Okay. All okay with it? You would like to make a motion to approve these two meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion. We approve city council meeting minutes for March 30th, 2022 and city council meeting minutes for April 18th, 2022.
Thank you, Counselor Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Webb, seconded. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Counselor Allen. Counselor Webb.
Aye.
Counselor Ash.
Aye.
Counselor Norman.
Aye.
Mayor Hobart.
Aye. Okay, moving right into unfinished business.
Okay, so we had talked about the request for the Spencer Park cameras to come back to you guys again, since we didn't like the lease agreement for the buying them on time idea. So I talked to Mr. Hasenkamp, I always say it wrong, Hasenkamp. And he's saying this proposal still stands, but that the costs have gone up since he gave us this proposal. Staff has a little bit of concern about going with this setup, partly because if you saw in the Parks minutes, Angie said Parks really doesn't have, if we didn't use ARPA, there isn't money in the Parks Fund to fund any of it. And what we had left in this first round of ARPA was $37,835. Staff was going to request, since the river ADA ramp failed and we have spent $101,000 on River and Umatilla trying to get those ramps right, we have no more funds coming from the small cities allotment. So it's either coming out of streets when we do that ramp or ARPA. So if we set aside the money for the river ADA ramp of $10,000, what's left in ARPA would be $27,000. And staff has some concern about cost of these and then how much use how effective they'll really be in catching. I think if we did something that was either hardwired to a DVR and caught, really the restrooms are where the most damage is happening, to the toilets, to the park benches that end up in the restroom toilets. I think something aimed directly at the restrooms. I know people have a lot of worry about the skate park, but we have not had one incident there. Seems like the community's being pretty respectful of all of that and following the rules and being nice to each other and kind to each other and picking up after themselves. Tim has not had a morning where it's just all garbage. So seems like they like the new park. Our other alternative is maybe looking at something that isn't as immediately notifying us like on a phone like these would, but is something that's recording to a DVR, which would eliminate the need for the Wi-Fi, which doesn't exist there, which is why we went with these ones. But if it's something council wants, then we figure out how to pay for the river ADA thing some other way, and you guys determine to spend this money out of ARPA. It's up to you guys.
We've heard estimates in the past of vandalism down there costing us about $5 to $6 grand a year between materials and labor.
Mhm.
Mainly in that vicinity.
In the restroom vicinity.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty expensive setup, but, in the long run, it may, potentially 5-6 years it'd be paying for itself.
Yeah.
Josette, how much did the second quote go above the initial 32,793?
He said he was holding this quote. Even though the cost had gone up, if you guys wanted them, he would let us pay the 32,793.
Oh, okay.
So does that mean the places where he had identified potentially could be lower? That's probably off the table though.
Well, I think the only part, him lowering anything, the only thing that really could potentially be helpful is use of our boom lift so that they don't rent one and bring it out here.
Okay.
So there's like $2,000 there.
And I didn't know we were revisiting this, so I didn't bring my proposal. Can you remind me what the annual cost is?
So this is for 5 years. It's the licensing for the first 5 years. And that annual licensing for the cameras is about $5,500 for the first 5 years. Once we're renewing, I don't know what it will be, right? But for the first 5 years, everything's paid for.
Mhm. Wait, so 5,500 is a one-time or every year?
It's one time for 5 years.
5 years.
Right.
It's about 1,000 a year. And we're
Right.
paying
And we don't know what it will be for the licensing to continue in years 6 through 10.
Okay.
They won't give us an estimate of that.
And that's for eight cameras?
I think it's 8 cameras.
8 cameras. And would they be mounted on the light poles or?
Well, the couple that he's talking about are on a mounting system on top of the restroom. So coming up from a main pole there, kind of getting that vicinity, then one aiming towards kind of out in the field, the backside of the picnic shelter, and then one's between the skate park.
Yeah.
But it just seems like a lot of money for,
So this 32 is for 5 years.
yeah, you own the cameras at that point, but then you'll have licensing. And if anything happens to the cameras after that, you'd have the cost of those
Right.
again, or repair or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rewind back here about a year when we were on the telemeetings, and it seemed like we approved about 7K from ARPA funds to do cameras at that restroom that keeps getting vandalized. And then we talked about adding a couple more thousand for Spencer Park that we knew was going to be coming. And those were supposed to be out of ARPA funds. I don't remember any conversation about 30 or 40 grand coming out of Parks Fund.
No, so the first initial thing we talked about ARPA funds was the 46,000 for the Verkada. That's when we talked about, that was the first round of Spencer Parks cameras was Verkada.
I thought we were talking about the ones that we
talked about buying the kind we did here, but there is no Wi-Fi on that side of the highway. And that's what stopped us from being able to do a cheaper hardwired version with Wi-Fi.
Okay, and then I just want to clarify when you say the Parks doesn't have the money, but on page 38 in Andrew's report, it says we're going to start the new fiscal year with 80,000 in Parks.
That's the cash carry forward. That doesn't mean that 80,000 is free to spend. That's what is going to be in the bank account on July 1. Our estimate of what will be in the bank account. So that's divvied out over the course of the budget, right? Does that make sense?
Right,
That's just what's in our checking account for Parks on July 1.
right. And the new fiscal year starts.
July 1.
So that it sounds like we have 80,000 left over.
No. Because you have all the insurances, all the electricity, all the things to pay. That's just what's at the starting first day. I believe that Angie talked to Parks and they have about $10,000 that she felt safe they could propose to the budget committee or propose through the Parks committee for new items new idea,
We
whatever.
discussed the meeting minutes and it was just, it's misleading the way that it's written in there.
Yeah.
Because in there, it makes it seem like, oh, they have $80,000 to spend, but that's actually not what was said. Just what was written.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit frank about this concrete work. We paid a contractor not once, but twice to do some of these, correct?
Well, now will be the second time for you to
Okay,
tell us.
that contractor had a set of prints that gave slope, correct?
Yes.
Okay, if the slope is wrong, then it's on the contractor or it's on to fix it. I hate to say it like
Yeah.
that. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Not up to us to hire another contractor to try to patch and fix another contractor's second try. I know it's a difficult job and we might have talked somebody into trying twice, but if they weren't sure if they could do it, they probably should have denied the job.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I don't know why we're talking about it in relation to the cameras.
Because, well, we're talking about in relation to cameras, so we want to not do the cameras to pay for more concrete work, potentially, is the way I understand it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it does make sense. They did it to the plans that ODOT approved, that it's 0.02 of a slope differential. Seems like ODOT's just doing this all over the place. I don't know that 0.02 is something you can actually measure when you're pouring it. That's like 2/100th of a foot
Yeah.
of fall. I think it's pretty sticklerish of
It is.
to deny it. I don't know that we would have a very good case going back.
No,
And
it's-
probably, if I look back, the contractor probably has a 0.05.
It is a stickler. That's why when we do it at work, we have people that double, triple check it. They go for a slope that's less than the maximum.
Right.
And they have an electronic
1.5.
way of measuring it. And it's really precise because they don't want to have to do it again.
Right. We don't really have a plethora of ADA concrete contractors that will come out here.
I realize that. It's definitely a challenge.
We don't have nearly what Portland probably has for a swath of people, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
And to that point, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the contractor also had our city engineer firm check the forms before they did the pour.
yeah. And it should have met they should have done it. Hindsight's 2020. They should have went for 1.5% fall.
Yeah.
That's what they should have gone for. That's what we should require. But then the risk is if it's, I guess, I don't know. It's just risky.
yeah, they're really sticklers on
We're
it.
looking at all the streets we can do with their money that don't touch the highway, basically, is where we're going to go from now on, because this is ridiculous. And really, it's ODOT's way of getting the communities they're interacting with in the small cities allotment to do the work they're actually the required party to do. They're actually, if we touch none of them by 2032, they have to come in here and do all of them. But they're not doing that. They're stringing it with their funds. And then, I mean, this is our first version of this, right? We haven't had any that, River and Umatilla was the first year they were requiring the cities to do what they're on the hook for, basically.
So they got sued
Yeah.
and lost.
Yeah.
And they're finding every which way to get out of doing what they were required to do via the lawsuit until 2032,
Yeah.
when they have to just do it outright.
So can you remind me again how many of these streets we have done? Is it just you?
This is River and Umatilla are only ones that have touched the highway where this was their requirement.
And we spent 100,000 on those two?
On those two and the versions of the redos.
But that's also that pavement.
Yeah.
Paved.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not just.
We paid River and Umatilla.
Okay, that's what's
And
struggling.
then,
Yeah.
we had a little bit of extra money and then that money got eaten up.
I thought you were trying to say that we spent 100,000 on these bump outs.
Oh,
no.
no. The paving, the full paving and the bump outs.
But we're probably over 30 grand, huh?
Well, we're $1,000 over the 100 they gave us. So that's why Angie's talking about potentially using ARPA to have the last ADA contractor come, and we have talked to them and they are going for 1.5% fall. So they're going under the requirement to meet it, so that if it's a little bit more, they're still under the 2% grade.
What category under ARPA would this fall under?
Well, it's infrastructure, so it falls more under the criteria for meeting than anything else, or than the other things we potentially, easier than cameras, although cameras can be used for COVID and people tracking and making sure more people aren't in the park than are supposed to be, and that's how they sold it, the camera people, the first time. Hazenkamp didn't touch on that, but he didn't really know where the money was
Do you
coming.
know the estimate of what it would cost to have Parker or Van Lom or somebody
Parker has bid the,
do them both all over?
yeah, so Parker, I believe it's like $6,000 to do the river one, the one that's not done.
Right.
He believes he can shave the Umatilla one to meet the grade.
A little grinding and a little
Yeah,
patching or whatever he's got to do.
yeah,
Yeah, it can be a slight dip in the way you finished it that causes when you're cutting it that close. So
yeah. So
full float it can
And
change
then
the grade.
we have bid him to do the Spencer one, which we know is this year's paving.
Parker.
Parker's planning on doing both of them. And then any one, we'll probably just go back to the ones that we know will meet it every time.
Yeah, you're going to get a local contractor gun shy and they're not going to want to touch it.
Oh, yeah, they are. That's exactly how they're like, don't even ask us about concrete. Nope. We'll do construction, we'll do the other stuff, but we're not coming back for any
I
concrete.
feel his pain. I wouldn't want to take it on either because if you don't do it every day, you have all
So our cameras.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Be that.
Oh, and they'll look for any excuse not to accept it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what.
they're gun shy that someone's going to come and measure their
was the
ramps.
only issue which he had was just grade.
Yes.
It wasn't
we're talking.
nothing else.
No, it's just that it's .02. It's 2.02.
Of 2 point.
Well, 2% grade is their requirement. It's 2.02 is the grade that failed it, right? The .02 is what failed it. So,
And we're not the only one. I don't know who's doing Highway 99. They're going into McMinnville, but they've been working on that and they redid all of those crosswalks and those ramps. And I mean, there's a ton of them there in front of Winco all the way until you come into town, but they probably tore out 10 or 12 of them and redid them.
oh, Forest Grove is the third time they've
So,
torn them out.
yeah, this isn't brand new. So we're not the only ones that are dealing with this kind of issue. This is a ODOT issue. They were brand new. I watched them pour and had brand new crosswalks and ramps. I go back 2 weeks later and they're torn out. They were brand new 2 weeks ago and now they're touring out and reforming them. So we're not the only ones that are caught in this, whatever is going on with ODOT and these crosswalks.
The way I understand Riverview from talking to you a couple of times is you didn't think the grade was possible without getting radical on a cut. Is that what Parker's going to do?
He believes, so he right now it's like a 7%. So he's going to have to go back into where the apartments, luckily the apartment's apron, there's some space in front of the one building that isn't the driveway apron. So he feels like he can cut into that and get it to fall right. Our concern was he was going to start cutting into where they crossed a park and then that's going to be a nightmare. But he feels like he can do it. So
They're going to be able to get it done within the timeline so we can apply for that.
Yeah, because his would be done ahead of the paving this year, which would give us July to apply for 2023, 24 money.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to get back to cameras.
Yeah.
Question, was there another company that made a proposal to us or were there other?
First one was
Camera.
Ricotta.
Ricotta, right.
That was 46,000.
Oh, okay. So,
And we kind of changed it a little bit, thinking when we realized we didn't have Wi-Fi after we wanted to do the cheaper version like we have here at City Hall. So then Chief went to Hazen Camp because he's doing a camera security company and this was their proposal.
and this is the cheapest, so,
Well, one of the things potentially I asked him, what's the next level down? Because this is a lot of money. And he said there's a version that's like, kind of like a glorified trail cam, basically. It takes digital pictures every time there's movement. I think we'll be better off with something that's just straight to a DVR. Then you're not worried, because that we could wire into the actual restrooms. You could wire it into other places. It's going to be one of those after the damage has been done. Really, none of the cameras are going to catch someone in the act. I mean, the time of a police officer seeing it and getting there and the person still being there is probably very rare to slim. So we could DVR it, and then once damage is done, you just go review the tape. And if you have them facing close enough to the restrooms, people are carrying whole park bench tops into the bathroom. We're going to see that person, right? Or as they're walking into the thing with chocolate syrup to spray all over the bathroom or whatever.
So we've put in cameras elsewhere, right, Hawkins?
Yeah.
So, and those go to DVR? Okay, and have we seen a substantial,
Decrease.
right? And do we know what was kind of the cost on that?
So it was 1,800 for the Hawkins ones, and those DVR into the building. So if we see movement or there's a problem, we go and review that. We can review it here, but how long it takes to repeat it to our computers, it's just quicker for us to go there. Same with Rose Avenue. We've caught a few people kind of messing around in there, and we review it in that maintenance mechanical room. It's just mounted there.
And you said it's about 1,800, and how many cameras was that?
I believe that system, and that was the price then, so it may be 2,200 now, but I believe there's 6 cameras in that system.
Okay. I mean, that's a huge.
Right, so if we could DVR and just let people know you're on camera, quit messing around. I think people don't want to be on camera.
They definitely
Whether they're-
don't, especially I think it would be better to have a quality resolution that we view later.
Yes,
Something fuzzy, but if no one's on duty to get there right away, then what?
right, then we're spending
The point of
money.
8,000 for a live feed, right?
As long as we can visualize and the pixels are tight enough in each square inch that we can clearly see that's Josette Mitchell, that's Dale Webb, whoever it is, then you can use it.
And is the cost of the vandalism, the about 5,000 a year, that is being attributed to the parks budget currently, or is that coming out?
Yeah, so when we have to repair stuff or when Tim has to clean up stuff, his time is getting charged to parks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we aren't seeing a pool of money that we could cover 35, but I mean, we might want to look at how we justify that we're going to be saving the money. So maybe some of it should.
Oh, I think if you guys, what do you mean? I'm trying to follow.
Well, I guess, so we're saying if we went with this, we would want to do it out of ARPA. So then that wouldn't be coming out of parks budget at all. But we're looking at something that's going to be putting hopefully 5,000 back into the parks budget every year. So.
Right, or not losing 5,000, yeah. And when we have issues at the scout cabin, we just go and it's highlighted where there's been activity. We say, what time do you think it happened? We had that issue. We thought someone came in the side door of the Rose Avenue and it turned out the cook came in and then left it cracked and someone came in and went to the bathroom and people were all startled at who was this person? Well, don't leave the door cracked, right? So you can easily see stuff like that on those DVR ones.
How's the night vision on those?
Good. We've had the scout cabin one we watched at night and we saw the person and we knew who it was. And then we see the cop because somehow, someone must have said, oh, there's shenanigans going on down there and somebody was causing a ruckus and he came in and caught him actually doing it. But it takes kind of the call for our guys to get there. It takes some citizen noticing it as well on those ones anyway.
Yeah, it seemed like originally we talked about just getting the same cameras and we talked about $5,000. And I think I talked about adding a couple thousand and do the skate park. And we said that was kind of a good plan. And then here come the $46,000 one, then come the $33,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those are real time.
Yeah.
The cheaper versions are usually recording to a DVR. And so if you don't come and address the incident, then it will write over it.
Right, you got.
So it's just paying attention and getting to each other within that 72 hour.
I know the chief was kind of proposing this. I didn't see him here tonight talking about it.
He's out. He's dealing with his dad's that passed
Oh.
stuff, so he's off work.
Yeah, I think the how drastic the price difference seems like it might be is a lot to stomach when we don't have someone on patrol all around the clock to be responding to that 24 hours anyway. And then if we are seeing that what we have done for much less money at Hawkins is effective, then I don't feel the compulsion, where's someone sitting here telling us this is why we need to spend this much more.
Well, and I think just in talking with Tim and Angie, there's some things we could do to strengthen and lessen the vandalism opportunities.
Mhm.
So putting the security cages around the paper towel dispenser so they quit stealing the paper towels or the dispenser as a whole thing off the wall. That could be pretty minor cost to really have some metal fab person lock that against the wall and no one could really mess with it. Because that's a lot of what Tim's dealing with is they pop the housing open, they pull out that paper towel and they either soak it and throw it on the walls or they try to shove it down the toilet. So if we can take some of these opportunities away, tack welding the benches when we build picnic tables, tack welding we put Loctite on all the nuts and bolts for the picnic shelter because they were taking the bolts out and throwing them in the field. We're just slowly learning that we have to be a little bit more picky in how we outfit things not to get damaged.
Smile, you're on camera signs would probably take care of some of it anyway.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing is I think, the kids it's not going to be fun anymore if the first one or two of them gets popped carrying that stuff in and then it kind of spreads like wildfire and they'll find something else to do for fun. But along with our kind of making sure things are a little more secure when we install them. We talked to our supplier for janitorial about just doing the bar type toilet paper because toilet paper housings are really easy to get into, right? I mean, you just use your own key and they pop open, you can steal toilet paper. One of ours in Spencer has the bar like a, out in the woods campground and nothing's ever happened to that one.
Sometimes they urinate on those, so.
Does the paper still turn?
Yeah.
I cannot handle it.
That's
It doesn't turn.
So
We actually had that discussion in City Hall when we were talking about that to make sure not to get the bar ones where the roll will turn. I promise.
So
Have we thought about the scale? I mean, this is for 8 cameras.
Mhm.
I mean, this was the full meal deal.
yeah, that was the coverage area that's what was necessary to do the coverage he was trying to.
To cover
The whole park.
Spencer Park.
Yeah.
But if we're really saying our major emphasis is the restroom, there's most of our problem. What if we scaled back to just 2 cameras?
So
Yeah.
my
And
concern is
Do a
just
trial.
if you're just moving the problem though. So if they're saying, oh, we're getting the restrooms, here's 2 cameras on the restrooms now, we can't do this and there's a skate park. You know, I would rather see coverage, but
Well, the other option too, the thing I have a little bit of concern is typically when we go back to these guys and make them revisit, their price for 2 cameras goes up because you're taking, right? So I mean, there's going to be some of that, but I can easily go back to him and have him propose covering the restroom and then covering like, you know, if you want one by the skate park or something, or facing that way or something,
Well, you
have him revisit it.
kind of said the skate park so far.
Well, I don't.
Vandalism on the skate park's probably going to be, I mean, other than graffiti.
Right,
And I guess, I won't say it. I can envision what you could do to the skate.
yeah.
But,
I think it's pretty visible. I mean, you can pull up and see the whole thing, so it's not as,
Yeah.
but then I thought the bathrooms were visible.
yeah, but you go in there, shut the door.
Yeah.
You're in your own world.
So I could ask
Got
him,
somebody watching the door.
I could ask him to propose a new setup with the same cameras that
Well, I mean, I think,
council wants.
we're struggling. I mean, the DVD is an option. But with this proposal, the enhancement is the potential to catch them in the act.
Right.
Because you will get a notification.
But you might get noted, what it seems like is happening is that the damage to the restrooms, we're seeing it's happening between 5 and the locking of the restrooms.
Right.
So,
But if our officers are probably well aware of who the potential suspects are.
Yeah.
And if they're seeing who's there, they're seeing it.
yeah,
Then they see them, well, they would have seen them packing the bench
right,
seat in there.
yeah,
There's nothing better than catching them in the act, or even if you're just swooping in on them and they're all running,
yeah.
they know that they're running a risk and the fun's going to be out of it.
Couldn't you talk to them too over that one?
What's that?
Had the communication, they could say, hey, what are you doing?
I think so.
Oh, it's not, I don't know if it's like a ring, but
I
don't think you could talk to them right in the act.
thought Hazenkamp said you could on those ones.
I think
So
so.
what I foresee happening with the cameras and it constantly alerting you is either A, someone sitting there constantly just looking at their phone, watching kids in the park, not out there patrolling and actually catching the bad guys, or B, it gets so annoying because it constantly alerts them that they end up just ignoring it. So at some point, it might come to where they're not really catching them because it's constantly alerting them because again, there's more people in the parks. Surprise.
You guys want my opinion or outlook on
I
it?
do.
Okay. I kind of am going back to the cameras we have at Hawkins and the senior center, Rose Avenue building. I think they're working, they're cheaper, and you almost get the same result. And they're not as expensive and I think you could, I think if people knew they were in Spencer Park and if you had 6 of them in Spencer Park, I think it would make a difference. And it'd be cheaper for us.
yeah, I think you're going to run into the logistics of power, cable to the DVD. I mean, you're starting to talk, if you're going to cover the park, you're talking conduit, long distances, more digging.
Well, so this is one of the options that I was thinking about, Dale, is you could use the snack shack as your one mobile, right? Your one, that side, right? You're powering it in there, the DVR's in there, the cameras are coming out of there, and then you use the other bathroom as your other side. So we could bring back what that looks like and costs of what we see where to get the coverage we're looking for. We can have him scale down and tell you what that is. And worst case, if you put in the DVR version and it isn't sufficient, you still have till 2024. You haven't spent this money, the bulk of this money, right? It's just going to stay in the pot until you guys develop something you want to spend it on or staff brings you something that's worthwhile. So It's not going anywhere if we don't spend it. It'll just stay in the ARPA thing until you.
Next allotment,
They usually have been coming, I believe it's in June is when the next,
we're not in a big hurry to do this till the next allotment anyway, right?
well, what I'm saying is right now, currently remaining after all the things you've allocated for, there's 37,000 in this allotment.
Right, but we can push this decision out till the next allotment. We
You
don't,
can. You guys just, we had said we would bring it back, so that's why it's in front of you right now.
Do we need to budget this into the parks? Would this go flow through the parks budget? That was my only concern, if we needed to put a placeholder in there.
If you're not going to use ARPA funds, then yes.
But the funds wouldn't need to be.
No.
So tomorrow,
It will be designated in the, I think in the ARPA, and I have, don't quote me, but I think she has all the ARPA money available to spend per council direction. It's not in contingency in ARPA, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
Do we know how long the current proposal will be honored?
I think if we don't do it tonight, he would probably up it to whatever his costs have increased. That's probably what's going to happen.
Even if we're asking for maybe a revised system?
Oh, I think his revised system, potentially, he'd have to just do a new proposal with where you're wanting to cover and less cameras. So it'd be different.
here, Homer. I'm kind of inclined to stick with their good cameras because of the flagship park that's getting busier and busier and busier. And we're going to get a lot of out of towners coming up too. It's just how we're going to pay for it. There's a couple options that I've thought of is 10K from the parks, 22.7 from ARPA. I don't know how we could push out the deadline. We don't have to pay till the next allotment, I think. Or there's another thing is we could add $1 to the parks citizens, and that would pay for it in 3 years. $1 more for parks. And I think that'd probably be a pretty easy sell also, but trying to come up with the funds in the meantime is probably the biggest issue. But to me, it's an investment, but I think it's an investment in our flagship park that I don't know if we want to go. I'm still hearing the chief's words on our limited policing, how it was a fuzzy picture doesn't do you much good. You can't prove nothing in court. And, I don't know. Worst case scenario, I'm okay with the camera system that we put at City Hall. I mean, something's better than nothing, but if there's a way of swinging these better ones, I think it's probably in our best interest for the damage that's being done all the time.
what do you guys think?
Well, I think some of the money could come out of the police department because it's doing part of their job.
True too.
So there's another parcel.
So are you guys wanting to stick with this proposal? Do you want to see a scaled down version of kind of what's necessary in the areas of damage? Are you deciding tonight? What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm starting to even question. I'd almost like to see a side-by-side comparison of these two different camera systems and what they see
Footage.
if it's going to be effective. I thought I've heard that our system, while it's good, is not to the resolution that they really like. So
Well, if you're across the street lobbing rocks at us, it probably isn't getting the pixels of your face across the street. If you're standing in front of City Hall, you know exactly who that is.
so I mean,
But I mean, we could get that. I could bring in video from the two versions. He has video of his, right, and what it would see.
yeah, I mean, that, and I guess my biggest concern, I sent her an email last night there on this because I seen it was in our minutes that we were going to, should have talked about this and what our budget tomorrow night's parks. But it sounds like we're not in a hurry. There's nothing in the budgetary issue for putting this in there in parks. If we wanted to do it. So
No,
that's cleared that hurdle.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost like to see a side-by-side trial to see what really works for us and what doesn't. I mean, there's nothing worse than spending money And then you go, this doesn't fit her needs.
Right.
You know, and this guy goes, well, I told you, you got to spend twice for the camera, but then it'll fit your needs. So
Right.
I mean, the frustration that's going on with our parks personnel down there at that restroom.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us an employee one of these days if it keeps going like this.
Well, I think he's most excited about getting the kind of security features put in. So we're working on that.
I mean, and that helps, but the kids going down there, when R&S had their sale on chocolate syrup and spraying the syrup all over in there, spending the day cleaning syrup out of the restroom, just,
Glue in your door shut.
Right.
yeah,
I helped him.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, you did. I
We
mean,
can bring it back as far as I'm concerned and have the chief here talk about it too, maybe next time.
yeah, we need,
Yeah, I would love to have the chief. I would love to see side-by-side footage. And I don't think it would hurt to have either or both of the other proposal ideas.
Okay.
To me, it's not about whether we can fund it. Is it the best use of this funds? And this is more money than the damage in that 5-year period,
Right.
essentially, unless it obviously could increase, but
Right.
that's hard for me to stomach. Just, I do agree that we need something, but I also say if we have a system that is drastically cheaper and producing results currently, then that's.
Right. So bring it back to you guys at a moment when I can get some video so that you guys could see it from each of the kind of, and then hear it again.
Yeah,
and maybe flush out his proposal. I mean, I don't remember where all 8 cameras are going to be now. I mean, to me, covering the restroom, the player, I know he said the one on the restroom was going to catch a good share of in the play area.
Yeah.
It was a 360.
It's a 360,
Yeah.
you know. If there was only 2 at the skate park, I think that's all we were proposing was
Yeah.
each end of there. That's only 3 cameras. I don't know where the rest of them were.
Yeah, so there's some on the light. So part of what's in this number is the license plate recognition and all that kind of thing, which I think works when you see a car speed off, but it also would be able to read license plates that are on the highway both ways. So I think that was, some of them were on the light poles.
Must be those 2 spinnier ones.
Yeah. So,
that's why part of it can come from the police budget, right?
Yes.
so we'll bring this back
Okay.
with video evidence.
Yes.
And then maybe, because I've seen it, but it didn't come to you guys, the park layout with the,
It's in his PowerPoint.
okay, yeah.
I don't.
So layout and,
He could send that probably send it to us, couldn't he? The PowerPoint again, to each individual
Or
council.
just those slides.
yeah,
Be able to look at that again.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on to the second staff report from Ben.
All right. Just a revisit for last time. So, and this is just with a couple minor changes to how we adjust rates. After a few years of adjusting rates every year, we've kind of run into not really problems, but just some, you used the word, Dale, the other day, anomalies, like little anomalies, things that can come up. So there's some minor changes. So with our proposed loan carry forward, we always had this excess revenue. And with loan carry forward, it's real extra money that we can only use to service the loan or just save it, whatever. We had all this extra money coming out of the recession, and we would always put it back to the ratepayer every year, any extra that we had. We always had extra until this year, when the sewer loan came up a little short. So we're kind of like, how can we mitigate this? And instead of projecting a number, exactly what we can either discount to the ratepayer or not. And it's simply by just holding off for 1 year. And then we will have an exact number. So with water this year, we were projecting about $14,000. Next year, we'll have around $14,000, more or less, but we will have the exact amount. It's not going to be, there's no guesswork in the loan, any amount of extra money that we give back to the ratepayer. And it isn't like with the sewer loan coming up a little short. It could be from last year. We refunded a little more than we should have. Because it was a projection the year before. So you kind of can end up in this feedback loop. And these aren't a lot of money. I mean, the little amount that we're short is fractions of a percent of what our sewer loan is. But we're just trying to avoid one, guessing, and two, ending up short again. And we could end up short if we lose a bunch of customers and we don't generate the loan revenue. We're just going to be short. But we shouldn't be short because we guessed the year before. So that's kind of our proposed change to the loan carry forward, is this will be kind of like year zero. And from here on out, we'll just wait till the next year and have an exact number to plug into the loan calculator. Pretty simple. Is there any questions on that? Any concerns about that?
We should have been doing from the beginning, but we learned.
We had bigger issues to deal with. So that's just a minor change to kind of protect us from, guessing on loan revenue and ending up a little short. So, with the sewer this year, we are going to have to dip into our sewer loan reserve, a small amount, just a couple $1,000s. But now we have to pay that back because we're required to by law to refund that money back to our loan reserve and also have the loan to pay. So it'd be nice not to have to raise the loan rate unnecessarily. Another benefit of that. So with the budget carry forward is a little bit different. Like Josette was talking about with parks, that's the money we have to seed the next year to start paying the bills until we generate revenue, and unexpended funds, like we're going to buy a thing or we're going to do a project in this fiscal year. The ratepayer pays for it, but it doesn't get done, and we put it in next year's budget. So these are monies that the ratepayer has already paid for, and we can't double dip them. And we actually ran into this problem when we first started looking at the budget carry forward, is we were generating these huge amounts of, not huge amounts, but pretty significant amounts of extra money. And it's because we were putting these projects or purchases into the next budget and putting them into the rate. And then that would just kind of was a feedback in generating extra revenue. So that's the difference between budget carry forward and loan carry forward. Loan carry forward, real extra money in the bank. Budget carry forward, money that the taxpayer or the ratepayer has already put in. So two differences there. We can generate extra money in the budget carry forward, but it's a very small amount as far as like reserve funds or interest in the state pool money. But it really doesn't amount to much in the bigger picture. So moving on to a small rate philosophy change. So when we started this process of dealing with the rates every year, we came up with 3 kind of pillars to judge our decisions on. It was budget-driven rates, easy to understand and administer, and fair to all ratepayers. And I'm at this point, after 6 or 7 years of doing this, I'm proposing that we kind of add a 4th one, is stability in utility rates. And what has happened is we've shed all this extra money. We figured out how to set rates that are very close to the budget every year, perform well. And so now we're really close. Rates are always going to go up. We're never going to beat inflation. And so now we're to this point where we're going up above and below as the trend goes up over a long time. And I think it's more important that we kind of level that off. And the last couple of years have been a good example. And I show you in this, there's a graph here. The economy and some other things have caused us to drastically increase water rates this year, or water base rate. If we would have just stabilized the rate over the last 3 years, we would not be increasing the rate by $7, right? It would probably be $5 or something like that. So we essentially gave the ratepayers a small discount for a couple years, only to make that up and increase. So we can't, it's not like the loan money where we can just hold it back and come up with some little trick where we use an exact number. That doesn't work with budget carry forward. But what we can do is create a basic rule where we only decrease a rate if it hits a certain standard. And that's where I discussed the 5% rule. And that basically means if we can beat inflation, if the economy and the amount of money we spend and the weather and our revenue and everything comes together and we can beat 5% inflation, the ratepayer gets a discount. Otherwise, we just keep carrying on, and that kind of takes part of that. How much do we keep for the carry forward to seed the budget for the following year? It kind of takes that out of the question. That was always kind of an issue for staff, and I know Public Works Committee and the Budget Committee in the past. And we just can say, hey, if the rate goes down 5% or more, we can get a discount. Otherwise, it just stays the same. And if we have a couple of good years in a row, we may see a discount. We may build up enough carry forward to get a little bit of a discount. But we're not going to be going down 25 cents this year, up 50 cents the next year, down 10 cents the next year, up 75 cents the next year. It just doesn't make any sense to have these little dips and hills and valleys while we're steadily going up instead of just kind of making a steady increase over time. So that's kind of my proposal, or no, my car alarm.
I don't think it's yours. I think it's the stick
That was
with the gate.
the, so when I did this and thanks to Counselor Webb, who's always like, well, what does this look like on, over a long enough timeline? And I actually did run the numbers where I randomly picked increases, decreases in rates over 30 years while maintaining an overall 5% increase. You're only going to get the opportunity, and this is just with inflation, not in any other economic or climate, anything else going on, growth of the city, more housing, less housing, anything. And you really only get about 2.5 times over a 30-year period that you would get to reduce rates, just with basic inflation. So I think that we had a good run. We got to reduce rates. We shed a bunch of excess money that we had. That's all over, right? There's no excess money. And now we're just kind of really close to our number, and we just kind of need to balance it out. And so those are just a couple of things, talking with Angie, and then, running them by Counselor Webb, that we thought were good, just kind of a couple good steps that we could take moving forward to, improve our utility rates and avoid a couple of other issues. So that's what we had for this year, and as far as utility rates go. So the minor changes. So I can answer any questions about those, or
How many average water accounts do we have now? Keep saying 1,000, but it's more than that, right?
that we bill
Yeah.
every month. It's like Cassandra and I look at it every month when we run bills. I want to say it's about 1,020.
See, I was going to say 1,019.
It's upper, yeah, it's usually between like 1,016 and 1,022, something like that. It fluctuates.
Sewer's a little bit less usually.
Mhm.
I don't know, what's that one running?
It's about, I want to say about 980 is the number of meter multipliers. That isn't just connections, that's actually meter multipliers. So of course, like the school is 14 point whatever, 1.
Apartments are
But the apartments are bigger.
There is that 1-inch service and 2-inch service and 3-inch service going up also on this? I didn't see that on here.
Yeah, they go up. They are just a multiple of the base rate. So we just look at the 3/4 inch, which is just a meter multiplier of 1. But every year when the rate changes, these get applied to the water and sewer base rates, and loan rates for the bigger meters get multiplied by, whatever we say the essentially the single meter multiplier is. And we're just so small, they honestly, they do make a difference. The school or the trailer park, they're paying a significant amount more, but in the bigger picture of Vernonia, we're almost essentially all 3/4 inch meters. Even most of the businesses are, the bars and restaurants downtown, they're all on 3/4 inch meters. And
So I'll just ask you simply, Ben, adding $7 to the base on water would roughly $84,000 extra. What is that covering? Where are we short?
You'll have to ask Angie about that. I do not, I know that the rate is going up. Part of the problem, and she can talk about this, you should ask her in the budget so she can talk about this. One of the biggest things that happened last year is we had a huge number of leaks, like water main breaks all over town.
Right.
Some of them taking days to fix with the crew out there overnight on overtime. So not the O&M, but the salary portion of the water budget was out of whack. And then we also, and Angie can speak to this again, she also has to look at the last year and be like, oh, all of a sudden we're having more water leaks than we've ever had before, and it's costing us a lot of money and time and materials and manpower to fix. She kind of has to forecast that into the budget. That's part of what's going in here. Now, potentially we don't use that much money. Maybe it was just an anomaly, but we know it's not an anomaly, right? These were happening in areas where we know we have aging infrastructure, and it's just part of what, it's just kind of going to become part of the water budget now. More than likely is that we're going to start seeing more leaks. Hopefully we don't see as many in the coming year, but we're going to continue to see, as our water system ages, we're going to continue to see leaks. So I believe that is the biggest area that caused the water budget to go up from last year, but you would have to, other specifics of that, you'd have to ask Angie, but I know things like our chlorine and chemical prices all in the last couple of years, we were stressed out when they doubled at the beginning of COVID, and now they're 3.5 times as expensive here,
What's our typical chlorine cost before COVID?
We'd have to look at the budget.
Yeah. Angie can answer those questions.
We could pull, if we ask her that question, she can bring it to budget, what the last 3 years and the.
But those are the reasons that the water budget has gone up substantially is, the cost of materials, and then that whole leak thing really kind of threw us for a loop. And we actually, last year, we had our 2 biggest water production and sales months ever by significant margins, like by 25-30% volume, 2 months when we had that heat wave. Well, then all of a sudden, I don't know, I'm not down running the water plant or scheduling that, but I sure know that, talking to the public works crew, they were running that water, somebody was down there more than they've ever been running that water plant when we were selling 11 million gallons of water a month. I mean, we'd never, 13. I mean, it was 13 and then backed it up with 11 actually. So average of 12 million gallons over 2 months when our average sales, our average consumption's like 6 million a month. And we basically tacked on 2 more months of production. So not only increased material costs, but, more of those chemicals, more of the staff time down there. So those are some of the reasons that the water's going up. But, for the full picture, you do have to ask Angie, specifically about where those things are, or, where, as far as like the chemicals or what percentage of the man time and
or,
It would be easier for me if I had some of that information and not just, cost is going up. Show us how much the cost is going up.
I think Angie knows.
That's
I
in
mean,
your budget. It shows in your budget as the actual salaries. You can see it.
Okay.
But I can ask her to get the chlorine.
Yeah, like the chemical thing would be a good,
Yeah.
this is, I'm just working with the rate calculator and figuring this out. And I'm just like you, asking Angie, why is this going up? And that's the short answer that I get. Chemicals, staff time. We had a whole bunch of leaks last year.
Well, and leaks not on mains, right?
Right.
So the one on yeah, which is right at the highway and deep and just ones that were kind of trouble.
Sign people hit a couple that were located, but they hit them anyway, or?
Yeah, those were easier fixes. They weren't located. It was ODOT.
The one by me.
They just drilled into the ground.
Big one on Knott Street.
Hey, there's your chance to get some sidewalk money.
There was-
Yeah, there you go, right?
The one by me, they had to bore under 47 and then the valve, the shut off valve burst.
Yeah.
So
That old east side stuff is getting older every day.
Yeah.
I think there's another factor playing into this too is, we have been reducing rates. I think wasn't last year another reduction? I think water took a major reduction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Part of that was how we're handling that over-counter cash. Angie and myself, we always struggled how we were going to handle that. It was really awkward. And we made a change last year, which I think gave us a discount in our rates, but that money is now gone.
Yeah.
And like to Ben's point, it's the new reality. Yeah, I think you'll see in the budget that the wages went up about 24 grand in water. So there's $2.40. That 30 grand that we probably had, so there's another $3. So now you're over $5 right there that you can account for real quick, and then inflation. So
You said discount on water. I don't remember that last year. We didn't do a rate review, so who would lower the water rates?
no, we did I'm paying the lowest rates I've ever paid.
Yeah.
We did reduce,
Current year.
think
we
it was
do
like by
change the
two-
rate
I think it
every
was-
year. We
Yeah,
didn't do the rate
rate-
review process,
Because it was COVID.
but we did change,
Yeah.
the rates change every year. As soon as council approves the budget, like the day after you guys approve the budget, Angie plugs the final numbers in here, and then these rates go in, essentially
To the master.
go into the master fee schedule.
Also, council doesn't have to approve the rate. They have to approve the budget and then you just calculate it.
You do
You
both.
do both.
We calculate it though. As soon as you guys approve the budget and we know the exact numbers to plug in here, we plug those numbers in, and then that's the rate that you see in the master fee schedule. The rate review committee originally, the original purpose behind the rate review committee is we were making some changes to the rates. We got rid of the water allowance. We had never calculated the sewer rate ever before. So it was kind of, the idea was it was a group, it was a couple of staff members, council members, and a couple of public works committee people to just kind of everybody to look over it and say, okay, this looks good. And and we should still do that now. And coming out of COVID,
Yeah,
we should,
planning on it.
yeah, we should get together for a meeting and everybody look at this and say, okay, this looks good,
Right.
right? We all agree that these are the budget numbers, these are the calculations, this is what the rate should be to go to council for the master fee schedule adoption in June for the next fiscal year. We just missed it the last actual physically meeting the last 2 years because of COVID. So that's something that actually you guys need to do is pick two members of council and then also direct Public Works Committee to pick 2 people.
I think they picked there too.
And then,
I know that.
yeah, and then Josette and I, and we'll just pick a time when we can, the 6 of us can all get together on a Tuesday or something at a reasonable time and
after the budget's finalized and go over it. So, but no, yeah, we have really gotten to the point. There isn't a lot of, there's play left over, anymore in our rates and stuff. But that's exactly what we wanted. We set out on this journey. It was a mess 7 years ago. And we've gotten to the point where what we set out to do was to say, this is how much money we need to generate. And we set a rate every year that generates that amount of money, barring a big fall off in customer base, which would, be some unexpected, half the town flooded type situation. So.
I actually went to Ben. I always review his graphs online there, and I kept looking at that over $13 million gallons of consumption. And then, finally the old cogs turned over and go, hold a second. If this is an anomaly, we can't base our rates on this. And we won't,
We won't
eventually
put it in.
we'll have that again this year. We base our rates on this, we'll way underperform. We don't want to underperform. So anyhow, that's kind of, I went to him and go, hey, we got to wrap our heads around how we're going to figure this out. He's come up with a methodology to kind of smooth that one. But then all these other discussions kind of came out of the woodwork too. It's every year that we're learning new things. There's little nuances to this rate structure that we're still learning. You think, you kind of get where you think you're there, and then it throws you a little curveball.
But they're minor things that don't really matter. It's just like the loan thing. Yeah, that may be ending up, $4,000 to $6,000 short on our sewer loan revenue by the end of this year.
It's still pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's pretty close, but we're just, there's no reason, we can make this a minor change with the loan carry forward that doesn't affect anybody, doesn't change anything in the long run, but protects us from, using a guessed number essentially. JR?
Yeah, I see your
Councilor Allen.
show a deficit of 5725 on that.
Yeah, that's
Was there a carryover? Last year we were floating heavy and we just let it go. And why would we be deficit when we're adding more accounts?
Because if people turn their water off, those months that those accounts are not active, they're not paying into that loan that we were banking on. You're banking on so many customers being here the whole year. If a house goes on the market or becomes vacant and the landlord shuts it down, we're missing all those months of income that we were banking or estimating.
More shut-offs than we had additions then, huh?
Well, no.
No,
What Josette is saying is that
it's all a guess.
what we'd always done before was guess. Like it's Angie makes that guess, which when she makes these carryover projections, you got to remember those are being made in March.
Yeah.
You still have March, April, May, June, July, and because we don't collect our July build until August, your revenue year. So you still have 6 months when she makes these carryover projections.
Right.
There's still 6 months left in the fiscal year or the revenue year with water and sewer.
Basically basing on a half a year.
Well,
Three quarters of a year. But what he's saying is what people spend in June, we don't get till July, right? So you're billing for the month after you use the water. So the revenue year, the fiscal year, and the calendar year are all 3 different years. Right?
but that's, but these are all just, she's looking, we don't know what,
The customers we have right now still paying for the rest of the month.
And that would be another good, I'm not sure exactly how she makes I know that she takes the entire last fiscal year, and she also makes a comparison where we're at up to the current month, in the current fiscal year, to make these projections. But you are guessing to some degree.
Well, it should be an educated guess by past experience, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then whatever's there that you're potentially carrying over, if anything happens from the time she made the projection to when you adopt the budget, if some big thing happened and you had to spend money, then there's less projected there than you were working off of. So it's all kind of a work in progress web.
And one of the other things that's actually happened, and it didn't reflect so much in her projected loan carryover for this year, which would have been about $14,000. But Cassandra has done an amazing job. Like we used to bank on late fees, but with shutoffs and having a good rapport with people, getting people off of their payment plans where they were behind and paying late fees month after month. And that's less revenue for the city, but it's actually a great testament to the community and the economy is that the majority of our people are paying on time, not getting shut off, not getting that nasty letter in the mail, not getting that hanger on their door saying, we're shutting your water off tomorrow. That's something else that's, it's less money for us, but it's a good indicator that the community is healthy. People are paying their bill on time. So that's another reason for reduced carryover.
Yeah.
Okay,
A lot.
thank you very much, Ken.
Yeah, thanks for.
We could get in a padded room and go around this for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like I said, I'm over there 4 days a week for 10 hours a day. Anybody is always welcome to.
Switch up from Tuesday to Friday, and I'll see you down there on Friday.
I'll come down on Friday. I still come down on Friday to feed my cats out back. And yeah, I've got a feral cat colony out back.
There's two city hall cats. I always go, what are you doing here? It's Friday. And he's like, I'm feeding the cats.
Well, then I have to debrief with Josette from the week. And so, but at any rate, no, anytime you have questions about any of this, the stuff with water rates or anything like that, I'm more than willing to go over that with anybody, anytime. So.
Are you the originator of the 5% rule?
Well, no, it was Angie more than, she was like, we should have a limiting. We should have some kind of limit where we don't reduce the rate unless there's something. And we actually looked at, the originally was 10% and then 7.5%. But statistically, you would never meet that, and you could end up pushing out more money, excess money, and it kind of ending up in these, now we have these excess funds that we don't know what to do with. So 5% works at all, 5%. But it was actually Angie who said, hey, we should have some kind of limiter there. But then I came up with it. The other way that you can think of, like I said, the way to think about it is if we can beat inflation, the ratepayer gets a discount. That's the simple way to think about it. So, well, I'm going to let you get on. I think she's anxious over there to
Move into new business with the staff report, Oregon State Library stats.
Years, happy library world. I'm actually pretty excited to share statistics because this is something I've kind of struggled to figure out how to present over the years. We, as a public library in the state, we're required to submit a statistical report every year. It's due by October 31st. The fiscal year, so it's actually kind of confusing to look year to year because you're just always thinking fiscal year. So it's due October 31st. And then around spring, a couple of months ago, we get the full Excel spreadsheet of all the libraries and every single number we present. And it's just, I've been wanting to show library board and city council kind of a snapshot and a highlight of just what does that mean? How are we doing compared to ourselves over the years and compared to other libraries in the area, which is the county libraries. So I got some help from Ben, who just actually left. He's good with numbers, and I kind of narrowed it down to some key points I wanted to show, and he kind of just helped me figure out how we could present that so it was effective to present. So I think it's kind of interesting looking at this because, like many businesses, the library was very impacted by the pandemic. That's why I chose to show 3 years when I'm doing a yearly comparison, is that we think about 2018, 2019, when we're looking at our number of users, and that was a full year, no restrictions. That was a normal year. 2019 through 2020, that was 9 months of a normal year, and then a shutdown for 3 months. And then 2020 to 2021, that one is when we have mask mandates. We went to appointments or limited the number of users. There's just a lot of restrictions that year. So it's not too surprising that that's the lowest. We have the lowest number of members that year, that it dropped off because that's our first full year of restrictions. And what I see that being, since we're looking at, we don't have the statistics showing this past fiscal year yet, but what I'm seeing now is we're on track to having new members added back to pre-pandemic. We're just like, we're right back on track with that. So I'm expecting our number of members, we're increasing. We're back to increasing. So it'll be kind of interesting to see those numbers over the next few years where they're going to go, hopefully up. It seems like they're going up. So let's see. So then we just kind of went with sharing per capita data and just looking at how the pandemic kind of impacted our circulation and our visits, and just showed that the website's visit went up just because that's kind of interesting, that just more people looking online, using our catalog, things like that. So for circulation, it shows the per capita data, but our circulation pre-pandemic was 23,617 items a year. And then that went down to the lowest of 16,368 that previous fiscal year. And looking at those numbers, those are going back up as well. And then visits down 18,843 during a full regular year, down to closer to 8,000 last year. And that's again when we had a full year of restrictions. And we did not point out, like many libraries, we figured out how to, even if somebody doesn't want to come in with a mask or doesn't want to come in the building, we did check out outside the building. We printed a bunch of things for people. It's funny. We print it, put it on the cart, and they would like drop their money in the book drop, and we just have this whole system going. So all of those checkouts outside, the print pickups and the craft packets, we did, my coworker Brandy, she put out craft packets each week that families would pick up for kids. That statistics doesn't really factor in here because they weren't walking in the building. So I kind of wish I had some kind of better way that we could have tracked that. But we definitely did continue providing services even. And we were actually, it was surprising to a lot of patrons that came in, coming to our library, because there's a lot of libraries that didn't offer services as quickly as we did and shut down for longer periods. So it was nice to be able to continue to do things for patrons because they were still needing materials, books, craft, just prints, all that was still needed. So, so I kind of liked, it doesn't really work to stand alone to show our relationship to ourselves the last couple of years of the pandemic. Looking at the other Columbia County Library comparison, that's kind of where it gets interesting. It shows that it seemed like our circulation weighed down, but looking at per capita comparison, and this is just for this previous fiscal year, so that would be So that'd be July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. So our circulation per capita compared to libraries was way up. We just had a lot more usage compared to the even Statutes and St. Helens. We just had a lot more usage comparatively of our library. That's per capita, but those are much bigger libraries than us. And I just think also interesting to show, if you're looking for the total visits last fiscal year, we accounted for 21%, and St. Helens has 23%. Statutes gets a lot of use, so they had 42%. But we were right up there with some bigger libraries, because the only libraries that more compared to our size would be Rainier and Clatskanie. So, we did really well with our usage through last year. And one thing that I want to introduce back into the next year's is programming and volunteer hours. Those were two things that we just were really restrictive during pandemic times, so it didn't really work to show those numbers, because basically we couldn't have in-person programs for a bunch of that. But our programming numbers have been impressive since the pandemic. It's just, since I started working about 8 years ago, our Friday story times have always been really sporadic in attendance. You might have 2 kids, you might have 10 or 14, or sometimes you just have 4 or 6. Now, regularly at our preschool story times had between 10 to 16 kids every week. And then we would have all these babies come. So then we decided, well, we need to bring our baby toddler time back. So we just introduced that a month ago. And now this morning we had 10 babies in the library for Monday morning story time. So it's kind of amazing to see all of these tiny kids and the families that are coming in. There's just a lot of new people. And, you can't just expect to know everybody that comes to the library their name anymore. You kind of just have to, but it's really fun seeing the growth of the community and seeing them engage with the library. A lot of new families. So I think that will be nice to see comparatively when we have our programming back up, what that's going to look like to pre-pandemic times. Because we also were able to do a full summer reading program last year, which wouldn't all be reflected in this data. We did a lot of the programs outside, but we had performers and we had hands-on activities and family story times all summer. So, and then so we just finished page 47, just looking at page 48. It's difficult looking at the other Columbia County libraries as far as financials go, because St. Helens and Vernonia are the only ones that are city libraries. Statutes and Clatskanie have their own tax bases, their library districts. So their population is much different than their service base. So Clatskanie, what do they have? Oh, this doesn't show. Yeah, their library district is like 6,322 people, and that's much more than the city limits of Clatskanie. So anyway, and then Rainier, they are like part of the school district somehow. And Ben had to kind of gather their financial statistics there. So I can't actually say that theirs are actually completely correct looking at that. But it does show that from here for the Columbia County libraries, we are higher with closer to St. Helens with our cost per capita. But when you look at the state library statistics, all those numbers, we're really average. I mean, we're just like pretty average with other public libraries and their cost per capita. And then also just showing with our usage, we're just, with our library, just have a lot of usage. We're compared to the libraries in our county, we're getting a lot of people at our programs or visiting, checking out, printing. We've had a lot of variety, and even more variety than I've seen before. Just looking at the library space, having a tutor in one area and then having family check out, and it's just like somebody faxing. There's been a lot of it's just like there's been more variety of usage, which has been kind of interesting. And it also helps too that we had the ARPA grant where we got to replace all of our public computers. And it's been so amazing to have everything working well, and our Wi-Fi has been upgraded, and it's been really nice to have a building where people come in and you just know it's gonna work. So that's been a great thing for staff as well. I think that kind of covers what I was going to talk about with the statistics, but my plan is, now that we've kind of gotten figured out a format for this, is to present something like this every year about this time and to get some consistency built back in, because I've kind of figured out how we can pull out those numbers. So if there's other types of numbers you'd like to see, we can kind of incorporate that into the data.
Okay. Do you have, go ahead. Do you have a door counter or something for these visitors? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and then patrons is, do you have to sign up to the checkbooks out or something? Is that how you?
Oh, yeah, we have, that's all automated. So we'll have a computer that does a lot of the statistics for us and check how many checkouts we have. And you can even break it down by how many children's books versus adult. And
Okay.
like that.
I was just curious how you were generating the numbers.
Yeah, that's helpful. Some libraries actually tick everybody that comes off into the building. They hit their counter.
Oh, wow.
So no, we don't do that. It's up the door.
And how do you get the word out about your programs the most effectively? What do you think's working for you and what's not working?
It's been a real mix, and we talk about this a lot because publicity is really difficult, especially because we have such a wide variety of services that we offer. So it's hard to just get all that out all the time. But I found with the programs, it's just being really consistent. We have an in-library calendar, which we share on Facebook, on social media. Posting on social media. Social media does a lot for programs. I have an article every issue in the paper that gives the program information. The website has our events on there through the calendar. And kind of word of mouth too, kind of I found working with other organizations for programs, you kind of build up your audience with that as well, or participation programs. And then, for example, too, sometimes having more volunteers incorporated, more word of mouth, like this baby toddler time, the parents are actually trading off leading it. So it's kind of like one of the parents brought two friends. So it's just kind of like spreading the word that way. So it's just been really consistent. I just, every time, okay, I'm going to make sure to get it here, and here, and just get it out every time. And it really helps that the Vernonia's voice is so supportive of the library and allows us to, every issue, put our programs, because that's not common in communities. Sometimes you really have to work to get your events in the newspaper. So that's really nice for Vernonia.
I wonder if the reader board is something that would help out when you have an author come in and it reminds people a day or two before or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think that'll be wonderful.
2 or 3 weeks before,
Yeah.
people forget about it, throw the paper away. But if it was hit the reader board, so-and-so's coming to town for a book signing,
Yeah.
might be, your counter might go off a little more.
Yeah, and I do too. Sometimes I'll put flyers in the community, but it's, I mean, the reader board is just having something that's just always flashing through there. And then for the book sale and just different things, it'll be really nice to have that.
Did I read somewhere where St. Helens is talking about cutting their library this year?
Oh, I don't know.
Thought I read something about that.
Well, that's interesting. I actually just met with the other library directors. What happened is they, St. Helens, their library director retired. And then their youth librarian, who was the interim library director, she went to Multnomah, one of the Multnomah libraries, so she resigned. And I think what was on the table, from what I heard was on the table, is possibly cutting that youth librarian position, which would be really dramatic for that library because they have, you know, your children coming into the library is a big deal. Like that's a big part of the library and the family feel of the library. So I don't know if that actually would happen.
Yeah,
But that's like, I think anytime you have somebody retire or resign or anything like that, there's some options, but I don't know other than that.
I don't remember where I read it. Maybe it was online or something about potentially cutting the whole deal, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I've just heard the potential of not sure that they want to replace that position.
So is it mostly kids that you have at the library? Would you say more than 50%? Or is it more adults? I'm just kind of getting a feel for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not good at giving estimates on numbers, but a lot of families coming through between homeschool families and coming after school, story times. But, you know, we have an increased number that just come in for printing, faxing, scanning, just kind of that type. And then, you know, the adults, they use the computers and just different things like that. Wi-Fi users. So I would say there's a lot of families that would use it. I wouldn't know if it's over 50% or what, but it's definitely a draw for families in the community.
Speaking of scanning, how'd that ever work out with the Eagle being digitalized? I know there were some issues with that.
Yeah, it's just been a slow process. We have on the Historic Oregon newspaper site, so that's through University of Oregon, we have the Eagle searchable from 1922 to 1957. And the Friends of the Library, I've applied for a few different grants that just haven't worked out for different reasons. The last one, they just had so many applicants and they went with communities that didn't already have digitized newspapers. But the Friends of the Library have agreed to finish that project. So we're scheduled next year to get the remainder up through 1972 or 78, can't remember, for the Eagle, having that complete, so the Eagle project complete. The big thing now is not just the funding, it's that the University of Oregon, they have the schedule, they have so much that the content they're getting in there, it's kind of a weight on their end. So we kind of have things in place, but it's just kind of a delay on their end to complete that.
Okay,
So eventually they'll all be searchable.
Great.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Any other questions?
Well, I think I can contest on people coming and getting stuff printed because we bought a new printer.
Mhm.
It says first sign in to the internet. That's about the amount of direction you get.
So if everyone's experiencing what you're experiencing, they're going to the library.
Yes.
And I have a lot more often people coming in with their phone facing it at me and I said, I need to get this printed somehow. And, you know, it's just, we're kind of the people that help get things printed.
Can you print Wi-Fi from a phone to your printer?
You can with iPhones, for some reason, you can do those wirelessly, but we do a lot of just like having them email it themselves and print it that way.
Right. Somebody had asked that question a while ago. How do I get something off my phone and print it?
We get a lot of people from the post office because they need to print their label.
Oh.
The post office and send them over to the library.
When's the next library board meeting?
We're going to meet next June 1st.
Okay, June 1st. Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Doing a great job there, by the way, too.
Appreciate it.
Business from the departments.
Chief is out.
Okay. Ordinances and resolutions, resolution 2022-06, authorizing the city of Vernonia to apply for an OPP grant for the Vernonia Lake camping.
Yeah, so we're working with the Parks Committee. We are going for a planning grant for the Vernonia Lake Campground, Wigwam Burner Campground. And so you can ask for $40,000. It requires a 20% match either in funds or in-kind work. So if there's, somebody that if we can assist the designer or the planner of this, that we would ultimately hire to help us design this campground and all the attributes, then that could be it. Otherwise, it's going to be about $8,000 in cash, which would come from Parks reserves, because that's typically where we track projects like that. So I'm working with the committee is getting letters of support from different agencies. So they're looking to get one from Stubb Stewart, from CZ Trail, from different groups that may use it, from a couple of fishermen that would love to stay there and fish in the morning and stay overnight. So they're getting those. Ben's done all the maps. Carrie's going to finish the land use compatibility statement, and then there's just a narrative. Basically, that's all there is. You don't have a lot more in the planning grant. It's very small in workload compared to the big asks. So that's what we're working on. And part of the requirements is a resolution that the council would agree that we go for the grant. So that's why you have this resolution in front of you.
Okay.
You know where I sit on this.
You want to make a motion?
Not any other discussion.
They allow you to attach pictures to the application?
Yeah, so you have to give site pictures. And then we have, so on the committee is Jamie Segrest, and he's done kind of a mock-up using aerial photo of how we would lay it out. So yeah, you can attach pictures.
Okay.
14 required attachments. So those are 5 maps, the Lux, which is land use compatibility statement, the resolution, proof we own the property, all those kind of things. And then the narrative is you fill in as you go and you save it in your application. And then you can do site pictures. So like from the parking lot, what does it look like? So they get a visual of that, bare ground with trees and scrub on it. And we're going to have a lot of work to do. What the Parks Committee is kind of looking at is we're proposing this as phase 1. So it's the actual outlay of the kind of more primitive version, but also bringing communal water there. So some sort of spigot for water. And then potentially they're looking at maybe going back for a phase 2 plan where it's a little bit more built up, not so primitive, perhaps. If it has a lot of use and we've seen it's bringing in revenue, then potentially we would go for a potential restroom on that side, which would also solve the problem that the Parks Committee has been hearing, that there's not an ADA restroom near the ADA dock. So if you did a restroom on the corner of the property, you could face an ADA restroom to the trail and then have the doors facing the campground be the actual restrooms for the campground. And we've been looking at units that have kind of mixed use or 2 single showers and 2 ADAs, so that would be kind of a next phase. But we are mentioning that in our application that we kind of want to build it in phases or stages. So hopefully they'll fund it.
Josette, does that grant just pertain to the camping ground and the campground, or could you use it like to upgrade your boat lift or
You can
ramp or?
pull in whatever. The risk is it's just that 40 is all you have.
Oh,
So that whatever the design is going to cost, if you're also designing other elements, that's all they're going to have for you. So we're getting an estimate to go along with our request of what the potential planning for phase 1 would be. But we're thinking it's probably going to be around that 40 number. But the elements they want. Sorry.
Thinking on that boat launch too, probably Marine Board probably is going to be a resource on that one because they do put in boat launches.
And we've had them out there talking about multiple versions.
Yeah.
The kind that could be put in and flip out and then removed out of the floodplain. We've talked a lot of different options for there. Kind of like a metal grating that would just kind of go kung, kung, kung. And that's what people would go down. And then when flood season.
Talking at Anderson.
Oh, where are you talking?
I was thinking of that. Like,
Oh, yeah, well,
there's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marine Board could be there too.
Okay. Moving on.
All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2022-06, a resolution authorizing the city of Vernonia to apply for a local government grant from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for planning grant to design Vernonia Lake Campground and delegating authority to the city administrator to sign the application.
So moved, Counselor Webb. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Counselor Ash. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie? Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Ash?
Aye.
Aye.
Norman?
Aye.
Resolution 2022-07, adopting a library policies handbook. Found on pages 50 through 55.
So the Friends of the Library purchased a display case for the library. It's kind of an extension of our programming. Dale Webb actually assembled it for me.
Didn't break it.
So we have that. It's not, it's not a huge display case. It's kind of tall and slim, about 17 inches wide by 68 inches high. The purpose of it is basically kind of, like I said, an extension of our programming. So we have we have a geologist coming in June, and I'm working with him to have some of his samples put on display in the display case. And then I talked with the museum, and they're interested in putting something in there and kind of along with doing a program. But the opportunity also, aside from the library using it and using it for programs, is just kind of an opportunity if somebody in the community had something displaying. Like I asked the art teacher at the school if they have anything freestanding art they want to display, and she just said, oh yeah, that would be great, because they don't have that much display space at the school. So I was just kind of thinking about how else this could be used if we don't always just want to tie it in with the programming that we have. So I think it'll be a really neat, it'll be kind of extension, because we already have our student art gallery where we have the library board selecting the art. We've got 16 frames on the wall where they have the art switches out a couple times a year. And I kind of think, well, this is kind of a way for the community to contribute to the library too, as well. It's kind of putting things on display. Some kid had a coin collection or whatever it is that we wanted to do. So because we were kind of opening it up to the community, if they had something of interest that they wanted to put in the display case, just thought it would be important to have a display policy. That was also a recommendation I had talking to the St. Helens library director before she retired, was just that, we didn't have one, but I think it's just a good idea just to have that in place. So that is, we don't currently have a display policy, so this is completely new. This is not anything edited. Along with the display policy is, I refer to the personal property waiver. That's something that Angie put together with the help from legal counsel. And that's just to make sure if somebody has something in the display case, then the city isn't somehow liable if something happened to that material. So the display policy I kind of put together looking at drafts of a couple of other libraries in Oregon. So it's not just me magically thinking of these things. I kind of looked at other libraries and what their wording and what they included.
Okay, any questions about the revised handbook policy for the library?
I had no issues with it.
Yeah, it's been, 3 years now since the last one,
Since we updated your
Oh,
policy.
okay.
2018.
Well, we had an edited just for the computer policy when we had the filter put into the library. But yeah, the bulk of it, 2018.
Okay, what's the wishes of the council with this resolution?
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Something ahead of time before something happens is always good.
Yes. Thanks for being proactive.
Looks good to me, Rick.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the,
I'll make that motion.
okay, Counselor
I'll
Allen.
make the motion that we adopt resolution number 2022-07, a resolution amending Resolution 15-18, a resolution adopting a library policy handbook.
So moved, Counselor Allen. Is there a second? Thank you, Counselor Ash. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Councilor Donovan,
Aye.
Councilor Webb,
Aye.
Councilor Allen, Councilor Ash,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay. Thank you. Resolution 2022-08, approving an MOU for the sign at Spencer Park.
Okay, so as you guys know, we, as 4 entities, paid for the sign, paid for the electricity for the sign, and now we need to sign an agreement on how we're going to pay the future electricity bill and put in content. So I wanted to get this signed before the superintendent leaves because he was part of this entire project before his new replacement takes office, so that I didn't have to start from scratch explaining to this person how much we were all a quarter of the project. So this resolution was drafted by city legal, basically just really simple, follows exactly what we're going to do. Each of us will have an administrator putting content on there, and then we just reserve the right to remove each other's content if someone forgets and it's not, doesn't have an end date and just keeps playing old content. And that we're just gonna get the electricity costs.
That'll be shared for,
Boosters, fire department, school district, and the city.
I didn't know the boosters were involved in it till recently. I guess a couple of years ago, I thought it was just 3 of us. but-
It started as 3 of us. The school and the fire department had tightness in their budget, and we realized it's right in front of where Boosters does the bulk of their student sports activity, and they had funds, and they said they wanted to be a partner, so they paid in their fair share.
The only muddy water for me when I read it was how to determine the amount of electricity. Are you going by maximum wattage of the sign and doing the math, or are you just gonna try to?
No, so this, currently we have on track what the city basically pulls in every month using the current electricity, and we can divide that by the kilowatt hours, so it'll be whatever the increase is. Because the bathrooms, the play shed, all those things,
Just Spencer Park.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. When you said city as a whole, so it's a whole.
I mean, we have what we expend, right? On the, so it's coming off of the Spencer Park play shed side. There's also an account on the skate park grandstand side. So we know the current pull and requirement of what we pay on that side. So that's what we're basing it off of. Although I did get a call from one of the budget committee members that I have to go check what water heaters we're using, because he wants to know, can we save money on electricity by the water heaters? So that might be something that we have to
If they get
adjust.
crazy about it, you can always just pull the wattage off the signs and do the math.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are, worried about it. It's not going to be very much for any one of us for the calendar year.
A couple $100 a year to run the sign, probably.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
I'll make the motion. We approve resolution number 2022-08, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for the sign at Spencer Park.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Counselor Norman. You call the roll, please.
Councilor Norman,
Aye.
Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Councilor Allen,
Hi.
Councilor Webb,
Aye.
motion carried.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any correspondence?
No.
Okay, city administrator report.
Okay. So the countertop that was cracked at the senior center has been repaired. We found when we removed the range, it's dropping stovetop, that the whole entire unit was balancing on an inch of countertop that was half inch thick. And so because they cut a 90-degree radius and didn't make a smooth radius, it made a termination point, which caused the weight and the heat to crack it down both sides. So they completely removed that edge. We went to Absolute Marble and stole scraps and then went and borrowed a concrete saw, cut, and basically built a granite shelf that range now sits on inside the countertop.
Oh,
And then just kind of recaulked for all the food safety, and it's working like a charm. So they've got that fixed. The regulator has been installed. We're waiting for Power Systems Plus to do the startup. I also have a call in because the way they came off the building with the gas line and the regulator, we're going to have to cage it. It's basically 1.5 feet above the ground, which is not conducive to it being a public building, and so we're going to have to contain that. It just has too many attractive nuisances for a kid trying to stand on it or something. So I think the way they had to configure it to get it from the pipe around to the side, they just had to do some extra bends, and it looks a little hokey for staying how it is. So we're going to have to put some sort of cabinet around it or a cage or something that blocks anyone from accessing it. But once Power System comes, they'll come do a startup, and we'll kind of play blackout and see what comes on and the order and make sure everything works like it should with the transfer switch. So going into the next winter season, none of their food will go bad. And if we need to, that would be a city kind of safe space. If the power were to go out, we could use it for a warming shelter. We've talked to the tenants about, different areas that we could start as a warming shelter in the flex room, because then it would have access to the bathroom and not be in their other areas. So we'll work out an agreement before winter with how that would go down, how we would notify them we'd like to use it, how we'd secure their property so it wouldn't be messed with, and all of that. Vernonia Skate Park. So West Oregon estimates that the light poles should be here mid-month. They were getting everyone excited being parked there today. They do not have the poles yet, but everyone's like, I saw West Oregon at the skate park, but they weren't putting in poles. And once they're here, they'll install them. And then we are going to order a couple of small signs to add to the sign that we have there. One being where restrooms can be located, because we've had a few kids just sneaking around the other side of the grandstands, boys, when they had to go. And then one that kind of reminds parents that there is a state law for if your child's under 16, they should be wearing a helmet. We're not going to have the limited amount of police officers we have sitting there trying to enforce the helmet law, just like we don't have them chasing kids on bikes trying to enforce the helmet law. If they come across a kid and they're not wearing a helmet, they will address them, but they're not going to kind of park and wait. So that's kind of our adjustment for that, is we're going to put up some signage that reminds parents, if your kid's under 16, they're supposed to be wearing a helmet. The cemetery, so the water line and electrical conduits, the water line's been all installed. Last time I spoke to you guys, we still have the valve boxes to finish. That's all in. We're still waiting for a couple dry days to have Robert go up there and just clean up a little bit. The backhoe isn't the most ginger piece of equipment. So we're also working on the grounds to get them kind of keeping up on it for preparation for Memorial Day, which is May 30th at 11. And I'm working with the cemetery committee on all those pieces. And then if anyone's interested, all the mowing will be done by Wednesday, the 25th. The Lions put in their veteran flags and crosses on the Thursday, the 26th. And then on Friday, the 27th, we'll be putting up the big flags at 6 p.m. Reader boards nearing completion. We're still waiting for the final cabinet to get put up there. And then I talked to Blake about that electrical cord, and then I sent an email to the sign company. if Blake can't find the right cord because somehow our kit didn't come with that connective thing, I asked Shay at the sign company, how do you get me one of those so the both sides are talking to each other? Weirdly, that was one of the components that wasn't in there. Street trees, there hasn't been any more further movement. I haven't gotten to the 3 owners yet about the long planter area idea. And then Katie hasn't given me any update about whether or not she can schedule a visit. I'm just periodically checking back in with her. I checked in last week. I was planning on checking in next Monday and just saying, any chance you can come out for a visit, and just kind of remind her that you guys would like that. We did do trimming in relation to trees. We had a cemetery committee member that lives right below the Tipton Hall Cemetery, which I don't know if you guys know where that is, but it's just right out North Mist Drive going Pebble Creek. She had, in that big windstorm, some large branches come down on her home. So she contacted the city saying, I'm nervous about the trees. So we had Maple Crest, as a certified arborist, go out there and identify if any of the trees were dangerous. He removed 4 smaller maples and then trimmed up all the weird weight from the trees that weren't dangerous, but did have a lot of weight on them. And so that's been done. And then we did notify, draft a letter to notify the owner that they need to do something with the bank, because where they cut in for that home, they cut into the bank that's holding the trees up. So and I believe she's planning on a retaining wall, but they need to brace that up because we can't be held responsible if it just keeps eroding. The museum SHPO grant. So in the month of May, we have the state parks grant, the SHPO grant, and a CDBG grant opportunity for the seniors and food bank to basically, cities have to apply. Seniors and food banks can be the recipients to buy food, and they're basically funneling COVID money through CDBG to give it to food banks, which is kind of a nightmare because CDBG is kind of a tedious process. We got sent the information from Columbia Economic Team. I talked to the food bank. There are the units that they use, residential units for the daily in and out of their pantry goods that really got taxed during COVID because they were trying not to open the freezer and walk-ins. Those units we've had since the 07 flood. I bought them after the 07 flood when I was treasurer of the food bank. So they're like 15 years old and they've just been used to death. So the CDBG grant would pay for them to get all new units. It will pay for them to buy pallets of canned protein, like a year's worth of protein items they don't typically get from the Oregon Food Bank. So why I'm bringing this all up with the museum grant is staff did not have the capacity to move forward on the SHPO grant in this round of SHPO because, one, I don't have estimates back. Their applications due May 15th. I don't have estimates back for what hardy plank would cost or replacing cedar shingle would cost. We've done the inspection. The wall is not failing. It is the facade of the wall that is failing. So I talked to the museum board members. We're going to put it off, get a little bit more in line, potentially get donations for materials because SHPO will allow you a $20,000 ask with a $20,000 match. So we don't have $20,000 to dump into the museum. I know the county's willing to. I'm going to ask the county to put it in their next upcoming fiscal year budget to contribute that money and then see if we can get donations of materials from a couple different firms and then do it all at once with the right money where the city's not out the 20 grand and maybe we get a little bit better product. The other tricky thing with SHPO is it's not the front facade. So they potentially will let us use hardy plank, which we would like to use hardy plank shingle because there's fire danger as that woods come up the back of it, we would not be able to stop it. And so we really don't want to put shingles on there because we think that's just like a matchstick, and we'd rather put cement board if we can do it. But there's some hoops you have to jump through to prove why you would want to use not historic materials. So for that, all those reasons, we're postponing SHPO till the next round. Because we're going to try and get planning grant done and CDBG with the food bank to get their things so that they don't have to outlay the finite amount of funds they have if CDBG will pay for it. So if you're not for it, it will be coming to you next meeting in a resolution saying, can we apply for the CDBG? We're getting all the ducks in a row ahead of that on the off chance that you will be okay with it. And they'll come and explain why they would like us to apply on their behalf. Only cities can do it, cities and counties. The food bank itself can't do it, so.
When is the next SHPO round?
It'll be May of next year. Downtown baskets and garbage cans. So Sunday I went and picked up 28 beautiful baskets. We went with Woodstock Nursery, which is right down there on Highway 26. They planted them in February and then grew them for us. So tomorrow and Wednesday, we're going to have a takedown and put up of those. There's already blooms on them. For the most part, there's a lot of green with really good buds. So we're thinking in the next couple of weeks, it should start with good or warmer weather. It should really start to pop and show all the beautiful colors. We are taking all the sedums that have existed up there. I don't know if you've noticed, but the baskets have burgundy and green sedums growing off of them, trailing. We're going to basically be repotting those into the trash enclosures for year-round green because the sedums survive through almost anything. And then we'll also have the colorful flowers that have come back and then be replacing the ones that didn't make it through the winter. But that's going to be going, and you will see that cost in your streets budget. We'll be kind of showing you, hey, this is what it costs to do those every year. And FYI, I'm going to be out of the office Thursday afternoon and Friday and potentially Monday. I'm driving my 78-year-old mother to Boise to watch my nephew graduate from college. So doing a little drive and miss Daisy. Hopefully I'll be back Monday at work, not driving home on Monday, but you just never know.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
When was I didn't hear, when the flower baskets going up soon? Is that what you said?
We're doing the takedown and put up tomorrow and Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
Depends on how quick we can.
How big,
Good.
are they like draping down already or what?
Yeah, so they're probably that big on the top and trailing already. I mean, they're probably trailing off of the pots, probably 12 inches.
They look nice.
Yeah, they just watered them. So we went to, I was like, oh, where there's like loading all these very heavy things into the truck. But
Do we have our water system ready to go?
yeah, they have a couple they have to finish. That Chris was kind of freaking out when I was like, I got the baskets. And he's like, oh, I'm not done with the 2 poles that had problems. I'm like, I think Mother Nature will take care of you. Get those done, but we can get them up there. Not worry about it.
I think you might have forgot about the water tank issue and asking Jeff about how they inspect those and how often and stuff. You're gonna.
No, I did ask him about that. He's out right now. So I didn't get the answer back, but it's on my list to get you a report back on that. On the how often the inspection happens and what's going on. Is that popping? The spots you saw, is that something popping or is it?
Control joint and the grout's popping out.
Yeah.
Like they put that roof together in sections,
Yeah.
concrete.
For the cemetery, the flag put up, are we contacting the free willers this year? Or I know they were there last year.
Yeah, so I have probably 7 volunteers, not including you, me, Casey.
Okay.
So I have 7 volunteers so far. but I can contact Joe.
I mean, they seem,
I know they do a lot of cleanup and prep for Pioneer for the same, because they manage the Pioneer Cemetery's maintenance, but I can definitely ask him.
I mean, Joe, I mean,
Yeah.
Bruce talked to him. Well, he said, well, feel free to let us know. So
Yeah, I will.
that's quite a crew.
You know when Chief Connor will be back on duty?
He is out his work days of this week. He's not here. So Sergeant Carnahan's running the show.
Do you know if their hiring process is still going smoothly?
It's still going. In your budget, you'll see we have the academy weeks and all that in the budget. So he'll talk more about that. Yeah. I haven't heard if backgrounds are, if that's closed yet and they're moving on, but he's been out, so.
Josette, excuse me, I met with Sergeant last week about, right after the skate park opened up, and I saw quite a few kids riding their bikes on the sidewalks and
Oh, right, with the walker.
and you know, we talked about helmets under 16. And so I talked to him about possibly the chief or the sergeant doing an assembly up at the school. And just a reminder to all the kids, those rules and laws.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a good idea. And he gave me a big stack of walk your wheels, stickers. And we could pass out to the kids too. And I've been passing them out, and I've been talking to kids about not riding their bikes on the sidewalk because somebody's going to get hurt. I saw a kid on the True Value side and the other morning going as fast as he can go. If somebody were to come out of the alleyway somebody's going to get really hurt. And believe it or not, on the way home, I saw the same student riding again. And I stopped my school bus right in front of True Value and got out and had a little chat with him. And he fist pumped me and he understood. He was very pleasant about it. He didn't argue with me. So, but we need to get the word out. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll talk to the chief again when he gets back and maybe we could.
Yeah, one person had a couple of ideas, is handing out buying a few items. So like a skateboard setup and maybe a bike, and handing out tickets all summer long to kids that are following the rules, that ante them into some sort of drawing right before school starts to get them invested in following the rules. And then they have an opportunity to win something. So we've been talking about a lot of options with I think we're going to experience most of the kind of growing pains and kind of reset and constant reminder when summer starts. So that's why we were thinking if we could pitch it to the community before they're starting summer and then have it so that the police just hand out tickets, you write your name and number and you drop it at City Hall, or you drop it in some pay box, or, figure out some place where they could drop it anytime they receive one. Then we could kind of get, and maybe it's not only police, right? I mean, maybe it's if somebody else in the community wants to hand out, if the police aren't able to do the ticket handing out, maybe we get some people that are like, good job, thanks for wearing your helmet.
Yeah.
Get kids invested.
Positive reinforcement. Good idea. Okay, any other questions for the CA? Okay, any items from the counselor?
Budget meeting tomorrow night, senior center flex room.
Yes.
Oh,
I forgot about it until you said flex room, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where it's going to be. Wednesday, Rod Hill from Channel 8 is going to be in town doing a little article on Vernonia. So if you walk up and down the streets about that time, about 8:30, 8:45, maybe he'll interview you. Prepare yourself.
Can we plant the people we want interviewed? You never, it's always a hit or miss, right? They're going to get the one guy that just crawled out of bed and walked onto the sidewalk.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. The Vernonia Lake, this year was the fastest we've ever pumped up the lake, but having over 6 inches of rain in the last month accelerated that process. Took 25 days to get it up to our, what we consider full mark. And so now we're just maintaining, only running 2 pumps, and depending on rain, might have to cut that back. So.
And your caution voltage stickers are in your box
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll have to.
for the lake pump. He wanted something when he left the hatch open that people weren't like sticking their heads down in the.
Yeah, or the electrical panel. Yeah. So I think that was probably it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I just noticed, yeah, a lot of park use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not, is it, our sign say helmets required? Because I didn't notice.
So our sign is all ages, so it says safety gear and helmet strongly recommended and encouraged, because you can't require it of someone over 16. That's why we're going to add the smaller sign about the state law
State law, yeah.
for the ages. Yeah.
I've heard of one rolled ankle and one broken arm,
Oh, man.
and they weren't kids.
Wow, a broken arm.
Yeah.
We were joking at the opening that there should be a trophy for the first broken bone.
Bone,
Yeah. Well,
and I'm sure there's probably been others, but that's just within my family.
We're gonna have to put a first aid kit over there on the sign too for people.
Yeah.
Do what?
We have to provide a first aid kit for.
Yeah. Everybody's got cell phones.
That's true.
Or parents carry them in their car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should be down there monitoring their children.
No, my little guy's like, when can we go when there's not going to be anyone? And I'm like, I'd have to pull you out of school.
Christmas morning.
First thing in the morning, there's no one there. And then like certain times during the school day.
I drove by at 8 a.m. Saturday and there were already people.
Oh, yeah.
All those
Have to.
homeschooler kids are down there all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. They're.
They're making out on this deal.
It's awesome though, because I used to ask my kids at school like every day, especially on Fridays, like, anyone got any fun plans? And it was always like Minecraft.
Right.
All like, yeah, we're all going to the skate park.
Right.
Thank goodness.
The hangout.
It is a
Yeah.
hangout.
Good.
action item, oh, go ahead.
I did see it vacant this morning when I drove through.
Yeah. When I got to
It
work.
wasn't very conducive.
No, it was a little.
First time I've seen nobody on it.
No, I didn't see
Yeah, I haven't
anybody
seen
at
that
5
yet.
a.m. either there.
No.
Yeah.
5 a.m. That's amazing.
The skate park did give me a surprise. I got my first sunburn of the year.
You hung out too long, huh?
Hung out too long.
At the grand opening.
Yep.
Oh, really?
It was so nice.
It was nice.
We have a Wednesday repeat, I think, coming.
Yes.
Might be a little cloudy though, but warm.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 70 or something. Hopefully. I'm ready.
Yeah, it's been too wet.
Yeah,
You only get one day though.
I won't.
I know. Then it's like,
Better than nothing.
the whole time I'm gone, it's going to be pouring down rain.
I think it's hitting next week, might get better.
I think we're past frost.
Frost? I don't know.
Ah,
I seen a 37 and
I saw two
Forecast.
7s.
yeah,
Past that.
like,
Usually Mother's Day is the dividing line, but you never can be sure.
yeah, that's it, that Mother's Day, yeah.
Ready for an action item summary?
Okay. So staff's going to bring back the camera project when we can get video evidence, the two types, lay out the camera positions, a map, and then have him send the PowerPoint to council again and have Chief and Jeremy present. We're going to bring to budget tomorrow kind of a breakdown of the increase in the treatment costs, chlorine for water, any other kind of weird anomalies. More so, we'll just getting prepared for when we talk about water and bringing them up at that time, but we'll get that ready. Staff's going to move forward on the planning grant, get the MOU signed by the 3 other partners, and contact Freewheelers to make sure they don't want to help us out for Memorial Day. Any other things?
What time would that be on
6 p.m.
6 PM?
on Friday, yeah.
I planned on being there too, if you didn't count.
Okay.
Holes are hit.
Is it? No.
6 PM.
Lifting, like,
Living heavy pipes and then like doing the Irojima
Yeah.
erection of 35 or however many I can find. Jasper and I were going to take the metal detector up there, try and find all the holes
Yeah.
ahead of it.
I could come if I'd be remotely useful. I don't know.
Hey, unfolding flags, making sure the flags don't touch the ground. We got lots of,
Perfect.
not only the,
Lions Club took them down last year.
yeah, you guys did a project helping that, yeah.
I think it went up pretty fast last year. By the time I showed up, you guys were almost
Yeah.
half hour or something.
Yeah, we had pretty good crew there.
You had,
Taking them down, we did.
you had the trailer.
Putting them up, yeah. Oh. Okay, anything else? I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:55. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks for our audience members.